Hello, my name is William Scott Sterling. This video I'm making is to explain why I've decided that it's time for my life to end. Um, it's been a very difficult life. I've struggled. I've kept on. I'm almost 60 years old now. I, I started out as a young child, having a stepfather that I was peeing in the bed and having nightmares, and his solution was to beat me with his fists, and that went on for a number of years when things started. Uh, Needless to say, with those events and many other things that have occurred over my life, I have PTSD. I'm also diabetic. Um, I have degenerative disc disease in my back. I have arthritis in my feet. Uh, my hearing, I've just recently got hearing aids. I guess recently, been a couple years now. Hearing is going, my eyes are going. It's just been a long life. I've struggled. I've tried to do what I can. I'm a registered nurse. I've been a surgery nurse for 25 years. I've helped a lot of people. I've tried to use my life to do what I can. I'm brought up, Catholic and Christian and that. Later on in life, we got into some of the cults, some of the Baptist and charismatic and those type of things. Just trying to do the right thing like everyone else, and got into the fundamentalist type stuff, and you know, trying to argue everyone to believe in Jesus, and of course that doesn't work. I pretty much don't have any faith right now. I've investigated all these religions, and nobody has all the answers. Nobody can prove what they're saying is true. It's just what you want to believe. It's whatever culture you've been born into. So that's really not the issue. Getting back to the reason why I'm going to end my life. Um, this last, looking back over my life, it looks like I went to live with grandparents. They died at 59 and 60. They were young. My grandfather had a heart condition from an accident, a car accident, and he died abruptly. And then my grandmother, she was 59. I went into the Air Force after high school, and while I was overseas that year, it was in 77, she died. So there's another shock, and then they're the parents of my father, my real father, my biological father, who never helped me or tried to do anything, and so he swooped in and took the inheritance and gave me a little bit, but he took the most of it. And as things go on, it's just I've noticed a pattern where I can't really uh, function in a work situation more than a couple years at a time. I mean, I feel like there's attacks coming at me. I can't really control it, and so I blow up back, and then it's just it's difficult in the nursing profession, and um, also because it's predominantly women. Uh, and as we all know, women are very competitive. They're very um, well, they backstab and are vengeful, and so they're always challenging and fighting each other. And that's in their nature. They're used to that, and I have a PTSD I'm trying to uh, deal with, and so I mean, I can handle it for a while, but on a day in day out basis, it's eventually I'm gonna I end up quitting. I don't get fired, but I end up quitting and going to find another job, and that's just been a pattern that goes on and on, like I said, for 25 years or longer, probably. I guess it was, if I count the military service, um, I did get a general under honorable discharge, but it was, about 3 years in, the same situation happened. And, I was young and just said, hey, I'm gone. I'm not putting up with this stuff anymore. And of course, I paid the penalty for that. And, but I did keep my benefits, and that helped me to buy a house, which I sold last year. And right now, I moved out here to Colorado. Although I'm from Texas originally, I moved out here to Colorado from Arizona, where I'd been for 10 years, just to try to start over and see if I could do better, or maintain. It's lasted about 6 months, and again, were the blow-ups, and I feel I'm being attacked, and that type of thing. And I do a very good job. I'm an excellent nurse. Everybody knows I'm highly skilled. I'm board certified. I feel that I've helped my patients quite a bit. It was kind of shocking to me working with doctors, here in 2018, finding out that 90% of the doctors only care about money, and they're just looking to cover their butts whenever they make mistakes or anything. They're so afraid of getting sued. Um, and so there's a problem there when you're trying to look out for the patients, and you're trying to make sure that everything is safe for them, and all the doctors want to do is go as fast as they can, make as much money as they can. And everybody knows that now. I mean, we on the inside see it much more. And of course, the women in my field, the nurses, they're all a lot of them are just looking for doctors for husbands, and they're all competing with each other, and they're wanting the doctor's approval, and they have this subservient mentality that goes with, uh, you know, working with, the doctors. And, I didn't get caught up in that stuff. I tried to just get along and, and take care of the patients. And, but sooner or later, my PTSD comes up. Well, a few years ago, I guess it's been about 4 years ago or so, I was ready to end my life. It was just, I just couldn't cope anymore. I called a suicide hotline, and they kind of talked me into, checking out a facility. I was employed at the time, so I had insurance. I went to a health facility, a mental health facility. They had an emergency intake there in Arizona. And I ended up spending about a week on an inpatient basis. And I told him, of course, what I'm saying now, but I said a lot more detail. And I went to all the classes I participated, and basically, their solution was, don't watch the TV news, and, try to think positive thoughts, and, don't let things get to you. And, the psychiatrists just want to give you medications. And the medication that they gave me, as everybody knows, and I tried it anyway, but everybody knows it made me so foggy and dull. And in my profession with surgery, I have to be able to think quick and move quick. Like I said, the doctors, the hospitals, everything is a fast assembly line. Make as much money as you can. If you do good care in the meantime, that's fine. If you don't, everybody covers everybody else's ass and make sure that they don't get sued. And with that type of thing, I couldn't function. So the medication didn't help. So I went back to just being myself, and so I've maintained. I guess it's been about 4 or 5 years now, and the job before I came out here, I think I lasted. Well, I had one that was 6 months. One before that was about 2 years. The most I've done is almost 5 years. So it's just been a pattern of things just keep coming up, and I'm just tired of fighting it. I'm tired of trying to get along and function. Most of I don't have any retirement. Most all that stuff is just a schemes. They used to have retirement that was actually pension plans or was actually in a fund, and now they want it in the stock market. So when with the last crash, I know, I lost several $1,000s, lost most of it, like everybody else, and so now they're doing it again. I'm sure they're getting ready to have another crash the way things are going here with Trump. But that's not the only issue. If I could correct all these deficiencies You know, and the mental type deficiencies where I could get along and not feel threatened and not feel that I'm, you know, like a panic situation where, you know, I have to fight back and that in my mind. Um, you know, with the anger and the PTSD, even if I could control all that, then I still have all the health issues. Um, you know, my diabetes is not controlled. I'm taking some long-acting insulin and some pills for that, you know, the glucophage and the glyburide, trying to do the diet thing, but at the same time I have IBS. So, and gastritis, chronic gastritis. I had all the tests. I went through all that, and you know, there's nothing they can really do but treat the symptoms. So everything I eat, you know, messes me up. I have alternating diarrhea and constipation and you know, all the typical solutions they tell you to do, they, you know, they don't work. Um, you know, and the doctors with the diabetes just basically, well, you need to lose weight. You know, okay, I understand that, but there's so many other factors involved with mental problems and other health problems, and it's just, you know, it's just a constant fight. And I think I've just reached a point where this is it. You know, this is enough. Um, I have a little bit of savings. I'll probably be able to get along for, you know, the next few months. Um, I'd like to be able to have a daughter and three grandkids, and they live in Arizona. And of course, you know, they don't have any, you know, they don't have a higher education, so they're doing, you know, low wage jobs and welfare, and you know, they really can't afford to do anything for me. I'm the one that has to help them, which I don't mind doing. You know, I love them and I want to help them, but I wish I had something kind of inheritance to give them. I don't know if I can. I'm going to try to send them some, empty out what's left in my bank account when the time finally comes. And you know, hopefully that'll help a little bit. I bought them a vehicle and I've given them money and helped them out, and I'm glad to do it. But you know, I just there just really isn't any alternatives. If everything was together, and you know, mentally, and if I could keep my jobs, you know, I'm still dealing on you know, I can't keep a relationship. I've been married 3 times. The last time about 10, 12 years ago, me and a nurse that I guess she's probably messed up as I am. You know, we didn't really, I guess, you know, neurosis attracts. That lasted a couple months. You know, that was just a quick one. Um, you know, there's too much to really get into. That would take hours to go over this, and I go over it in my mind, and I try to think of, you know, things I could have done better in that, and I do good for a while, like I say, and then I get into a social situation, and I just, you know, I can't at the time I can't deal with it, but afterwards when I look back, I say, yeah, I feel like I'm being attacked again. You know, it all goes back to my original childhood and you know, being bullied in school and all that type of thing. You know, I was a little fat kid, you know, that they love to pick on, and you know, all that stuff wears on you. Um, and it just continues on, and you know, um, I just you know, I'm just going to go ahead and just call it quits. I mean, I've done pretty well. Um, I've made good money. I've helped a lot of people, you know, where I could. I've tried to be charitable. I haven't had any family I've had have just been users and abusers. And, you know, I have an older brother, about 3 years older than me. And he was at the same time where all the beatings were coming, he was being molested by a Catholic priest. So that messed him up in his head. And he's basically, you know, just a sociopath. He'll use everybody he can, and you can't trust him. And I finally had to break ties with him several years ago when I had a shoulder injury, and you know, he, after all I've done for him, he wouldn't help me, and I was kind of abandoned. I had no help. Um, and I got through it, but it was very, very difficult. And uh, it's just there really isn't anybody in my life. I can't hold a relationship. I mean, I'm a likable guy. I got a good personality, good sense of humor. I can talk to people and meet people and that. But, when it comes to really getting serious about what you believe and what you're going to do with your life and having a relationship, I just, it's taken me all these years to realize how women challenge men, and they say they want a sensitive, kind, funny guy, but what they really want is a jerk that'll, you know, that doesn't have very much brains, and then they can challenge them. And I mean, for example, they've got this stupid saying about, you can be, with your wife, you can be right or you can be happy. I mean, what a horrible thing to say. I mean, if it went the other way and you said, told women that, oh, there would be protests in the street. So that's what I've kind of had to deal with. I really can't function with a relationship. I really, you know, I don't like being disrespected. I don't like being challenged and the fighting and that. And when I tried to do it, I did okay, just like the jobs and the PTSD part of it. It gets to a point to where, I mean, not physical, but it's just, you know, I get verbal back and it's verbal fighting and then resentments and it's miserable. And anyway, so I'm 59 years old, coming up on 60, and I haven't had a relationship in a dozen years. Um, it's just time, I think. Um, I can't really think of anything else to say. I just wanted to kind of give an idea when whoever finds this and wants to know, oh well, what was wrong with him? Well, you know, there was a lot wrong with me. There's a lot wrong with everybody, but I've taken it as far as I can, and I'm not able to work. I mean, I can force it, I can try, but there's so much pain in my feet, and the diabetes, that makes you irritable too. And then I know at the same time that my spine is degenerating, and I have pain. Both of my hips. I had a CT scan on my abdomen. Excuse me for and that's another thing. The gastritis makes me burp all the time, as well as the other end. Um, anyway, the CT was for my abdomen to check, see, make sure everything was okay with my what was going on with the IBS, because it's a functional problem. It's not a structural thing that'll show up, but they have to rule that out. And I guess when they went down lower on the scan, they caught both of my femoral heads, both of my hips, and part of the report was that it looked like it was the avascular necrosis. That my hips are degenerating, and I have pain in each. I change, it's hard for me to sleep. I mean, when I'm on my side, which I usually sleep on my side, which, I also have sleep apnea. I use a CPAP machine, which actually has been a blessing. I've been able to sleep using the CPAP for the last several years. But both my hips hurt at night, and I have to constantly change positions, and they ache. And I'm just, I mean, it's not going to get any better the rest of my life. I mean, right now I don't have insurance because I'm not employed. It's just that kind of thing. It's just, I think I've lived my life. Um, I've done a lot of good. I've tried to be on the right side of things. It hasn't always been that way. Unfortunately, I got messed up in a religious cult, fundamentalist Baptist Christian stuff, and my daughter was brought up that way, so it probably messed her up in the head too. Now she doesn't want any religion and doesn't want to raise the grandkids or anybody with that. So, I've made some mistakes, and I'm just tired of it. I think it's enough. I've looked into some methods, and I don't know how I'm gonna do it exactly, but I do have some ideas and try to make it as quick and painless as possible. And I think it's just time to end. So thanks for listening, and I wish things would be better. I hope there's an afterlife. There probably isn't. This is probably it, which is okay with me. Um, you know, it's gonna have to be. I can struggle on for the next 10, 20 years and end up not being able to work and living in a shack apartment somewhere, and not being able to feed myself and care for myself, and my mobility getting worse and worse, and just suffer and suffer, and you know end up having a stroke, or my kidneys and my liver, which also are having abnormal results from the diabetes and everything. It's just why should a human being go through that? Why is that a way that I should live? If there is a God, I hope he understands that. Going through all this, I've seen, I did charity work with Salvation Army, of going and taking meals to people that were shut-ins, and it was just horrible. I mean, the conditions, in poverty and elderly, and nobody to help them, in the filthy situation, because they don't have the energy or the physical ability to care for themselves, and mental problems there. We don't care about mental health in this country. I mean, it started back at Reagan when he cut all the funding, and both the political parties, all the politics is cutting everything for health care, and it's all just about profit, and you know, there's some good that's done along the way, but there's so much more. Things could have gone different, and for other people. I mean, I'm not just being selfish about myself. I mean, just the world in general, or especially the United States. I mean, we claim to be Christian. And of course, I don't know if Jesus was real or not, but his teachings, I mean, they obviously weren't original. Other cultures and religious, leaders said basically the same thing, which nobody follows, which, bear one another's burdens, and, to be able to do things together and help one another, and that type of thing that, some of it gets done, but not nearly as much as it could. And all of us that are falling through the cracks, and you know and not going to be cared for, why should I live the rest of my life, in pain and suffering? And my mind is going to keep going. I'm still going to have the PTSD. uh, I won't be able to afford the drugs, won't be able to have, I mean, it's just, it's the cycle. And I've seen that suffering, and I've seen what people, end up, especially if you end up in a nursing home. And, I mean, everybody knows what it is. It's, the elephant in the room that people just hope, well, I hope that's not me, well, you never know. I mean, it's very possible. I mean, a large percentage of us. I mean, I'd be homeless. I could be living in a tent city, that type of thing. Because I mean, who's going to care for me? You know. All right. So I just want to kind of give an idea of why I'm where I'm at in my life. Um, it's hard. I mean, no matter what rationale I have, it's hard to give up this world. And I know that I'll have second thoughts, and I don't know, I know I'll be at the very last minute, the last few seconds or whatever, I'll be thinking, oh, I shouldn't do this. And that's just natural. I've learned that that's a natural thing. It's self-preservation. But, you know, I hope that I am successful, and I don't end up a vegetable, or something like that, totally out of it. And I hope that if it does turn to that, they'll let me go, and just, because there's really no solution then. Because if I end up mentally incapacitated, and unsuccessful, then that's just going to magnify everything and make it worse. And I'm going to try to do this as intelligently as possible. And I think I've lived long enough. I've done all I can do. Uh, you know, I'm probably about, you know, what, 60 years old. I've probably got another 10 years, maybe 15. If it goes longer, then I'll really be destitute and out. So All right. I'm just going to say goodbye. And thank you for listening. I'm sorry my life ended up the way it was. You know, I hope, you know, if there's like a reincarnation thing, I hope there's a better situation and I do better the next time. Um, if I actually am meeting, a God, then uh, he would have to know what I went through and would have to understand if he really is a God. Otherwise, he's not a God. And if there's nothing, then that's whether it happens now or 10 or 15 years or 20 years from now, we all are gonna go there. We all have to deal with it. So I would rather deal with it on my terms and with as little suffering as possible. I've suffered enough, and um, like I said, I think I've balanced out my life at this point, and I've degenerated so far that I'm not going to be able. It's kind of like I've been at the top of the hill. I'm starting to come down. I'm about halfway down, and I can see what's going to happen when I get to the bottom. And you can see the pit at the bottom where you're going to hit, and it's like, why should I die down there? And go for the rest of this suffering that way it's been. Let's just do it now, okay? So goodbye, and please try to make it a better world, okay?